Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I am back and feeling better, and my voice is back. So good to be back on the horn here making podcasts. My guest today is a good buddy of mine who I don't see nearly enough, Debu Choudhury. He is a pilot he hails from Manali, just on the other backside of Beer, and you all know him from putting up big flights out there for years and years. He's been flying almost 30 years. He was part of the team with Eddie Colfax and Jim Mallinson and John Sylvester and Antoine and all those guys guiding out there. And that's where I met them the first time back in 2009, doing a trip with those guys, and then back again in 2011. And Debu now lives in France with his family and guides and instructs and does tandems. Just got back from Colombia guiding down there. And I've been wanting to talk to him for a long time because of these awesome, huge flights he's been putting up the last few years out in Beer. And had the record and lost the record and had the record, got the record again and lost it again. But he's been putting up some really cool bivvy flights and out and backs and just flying in that big, magnificent, incredible terrain. So yeah, we sat down and chatted bivvy and flying and passion and guiding and more bivvy and more flying, and had a blast. So hope you enjoy this talk with Debu, a legend of the skies in India. Cheers. Debu, that took us several months to put together, but it's it's good to finally have you on the show. I'm actually, that's encouraging that we're both so hard to track down. I think that means we're having a good time.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. It's been a while, but like you say, I guess we're both having a good time and busy. But well, I'm really happy that we got it together, and glad to be here with you.
You know, I was laying in bed last night trying to remember the last time we saw each other. Was it when I was in Beer, or we've seen each other
Hmm.
since, I hope, right? That was 2011.
Uh,
It's been a
I
minute.
think it was in Switzerland, wasn't it? In the bus, in that bus. That was the
Yes,
last.
that's right.
I
That's
was
right.
thinking the same last night. It was funny. I was like, when did I see Gavin? It was like in the bus in Visp. I remember we had an evening together.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Got you in the Nivik mobile.
that's the one.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Well, I mean, it's so fun to just think about you because it just it puts all these memories into my mind from those early days. I mean, I still chalk up all the madness that has happened since. I mean, those were my very early days, the trip to Beer in 2009, the first one, and then the second one in 2011. I still had the boat thing going very much. I mean, that was my business. I didn't have a lot of time to fly,
Yeah.
and just hanging out with you and Jim and Eddie and John. And, I did my first bivvy ever with John. We flew back over the back to Manali and top landed and slept around a fire and got encased in ice. And he was just happy as Larry. I was completely frozen, and I thought I got to toughen up. And yeah, here's some tea. You'll be good. But you've been doing some amazing routes and lines and stuff out there. And before we get to that, I just thought we should catch the audience up a little bit with you. You just got back from Colombia. I know you're doing some guiding. You're living in France now, but give us the background of the quick hit resume of your flying history, how you got connected with the boys, where you're from, and what you're doing these days.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I start at the beginning. Well, you've been to Manali. That's where I grew up in North India. And
Yeah.
my mum's Italian, my dad was Indian, and I was born in Manali. And I think the first paragliders I saw there must have been about 91 or 92. And already I was like,
Wow.
fuck,
Early.
that looks cool. And in '94, I got the chance to have a go on the school slope with one of the local guys who started it there, and well, that was it. That was the beginning of the. I haven't stopped since. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, till about 2000, We flew quite a bit, but not that much, because I would work in the summers in Europe. I mean, I quit school in the meantime, which to go and work to make enough money to buy wings and shit. And then we had a nice community in beer. I mean, like, beer is not quite what it used to be 25 years ago, but I remember the first season, I think it was 96 that I was there, and there was maybe six of us, and we spent the month flying there, and it was very chilled. We'd just fly and top land. We didn't really know about cross country, and we kind of teach ourselves. And from there, the big change actually came in 2001 when they had a pre-World Cup there, and Xavier Murillo turned up with a whole bunch of hotshot pilots, and we were like, aha, okay, there's a lot more to learn.
Ah,
uh,
cool.
which kind of motivated me to start doing comps, which opened up a whole new page and progression, I guess. Um, After that, I spent summers working in Europe and doing comps mainly. Uh, and then I think I started guiding in about 2006, I think, when Jim and John and Eddie and all asked me to give them a hand. And so that was the beginning of the kind of guiding thing. And we had quite a few years. That's where we met. I think, was it
Mm.
2009 you said you came?
Yeah, and Antoine was there in one of the, I think Antoine was there in '09, and I flew with him quite a bit, and John, and
Yeah,
it was just magic. And then we came back in 2011 and we did that outside tandem thing. Do you remember that?
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
We brought a guy who did an article, and because you guys were you were contemplating getting up, a kind of a business almost going where you were sky camping with tandem passengers, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, that was the tandem safari idea. I think, yeah, that's when we
Yeah.
did that. I've forgotten the name of the guy, but I remember from Outside Magazine. And I think John and Eddie and all did actually run one trip. I don't think I was there. I'm not sure why I wasn't there, but they did actually try it once. Uh, but I think the logistics and all was quite complicated in the end, so I think they just went
Yeah.
back to guiding after that.
I don't know if you remember it. I had a crazy crash there flying with John where I just totally walked away. It was a miracle. But you had it set up where donkeys or burros or something would bring up. It was there. It was that place. We camped there that night where I crashed, and they had, everything got brought up to us. It was amazing.
Yeah,
It
it's
was quite neat. I mean, it wasn't that far from the beer launch, as I remember. It was just 25K or so down the ridge, but it was
yeah,
pretty neat spot.
that spot's become quite famous now. It's called 360.
I bet.
And
Yeah.
like when we were there that time, we'd have the colonel. He'd come up, remember, with all his staff, and we got like a
Yeah.
full Maharaja kind of treatment and tents, and that was quite fun. But
Right.
since then, I think around, I'm not sure which year, but a French guy called Robinson has built a super cool house up there, and then he's got together with the locals, and they've built like a campsite, and you can fly there and spend the night, and rent a tent or whatever and get food,
Wow.
and yeah, it's a super cool place. 360.
Wow. That sounds very Alps-esque.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a Indian version of a Swiss hut.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before we get into some of the crazy, awesome flights you've been doing out there, you mentioned a couple things I wanted to get into. Are you still flying comps, or how does your how does your year get used up flying wise these days? I
Uh,
know COVID disrupted everything, but let's pretend it was a normal year.
so basically, I stopped flying comp seriously in 2012 when I had a child, or my wife had a child.
Mm,
Changes things,
yeah.
as you know.
Yes. Yes, it does.
And then we had another one. So I didn't really do many comps between 2012 and then 2018. I moved back. I moved to France, and I thought, okay, let's
Mm.
give it a try again. In 2019, I think I did two or three comps, which went pretty well, and I was like, oh, I could get back into this. And I'd booked like six comps for 2020, when we all know what happened then.
Yes.
So, and then I did one last year. I did a pre-World Cup in Gourdon, which again went pretty well. and
Yeah.
I'm looking at doing the Worlds this year in May. So yeah, one or two here just to see friends and have fun, and yeah, just you know the vibe. I do miss it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good time, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah. I interestingly, because you're ahead of me with the kids, my daughter's 5 now, so you've got more experience with this. But one of the things that I'm, just personally struggling with, I'd like to get your ideas on is just the time away. That's really the reason I'm not doing the X Alps this year. Was I still love it. It was part of it's because I'm 50 and it's ridiculous, but I still love the race. It's just amazing.
yeah,
It's such a great adventure, but the time required was it just felt kind of just way too selfish. When you have
yeah,
I didn't mind it so much when she was a baby, because when they were a baby, they really rely on mom a lot more. I didn't really feel like I was that integral to the whole thing. But now, she's skiing and she's awesome and fun, and they change so fast. And
yeah,
so, I was just yeah, I did the super final this year, and boy, that's a long time to be away. It's a I don't know.
yeah.
I'm struggling with that. What
It's
what the right balance is there.
it's a pretty tough one. I struggle with that as well. I mean, the COVID years, in a way, it was a mess, but in a way, it was quite nice because I didn't have the choice. I stayed at home. So,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
home for like 2.5 years with not much traveling. And since last year, I've been traveling again quite a bit. And yeah, like you say, it's hard finding the right balance. I mean, I was in India
Mm.
for over a month and a half last October, and that was definitely too long for everyone. Even me. By the end, I was
Oh,
like,
you
yeah.
you, you didn't have the family there then, because they usually go with you, don't they?
No, we went in April last
Oh,
year, the whole family for a month, and then I went back in October
yeah.
to work and fly. And yeah, the kids have got school and we've got chickens, so someone needs to be home.
And what about Flo? What's her approach to flying these days?
Flo, since we had kids, Flo kind of stopped flying. She carried on for a while after the first one, and she wasn't into it, and she was not
Mm,
really enjoying it so much and having some fears. So she kind of just slowly
mm.
stopped, and she'll occasionally come and do a hike and fly with me these days. And she hasn't flown for 5 years, but she can walk up a mountain and take off
Still crushes it.
and fly off, no problem. So, but yeah, she's not so into it
Yeah.
anymore at the moment, but she might come
Huh.
back. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old are your kids now?
12 and 7.
12 and 7. Okay. Yeah, seven's still pretty
Yeah,
young.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Ah. Yeah, so Debu, you've been putting up some pretty wild stuff on X contests for the last bunch of years, and this is your place out there. But some huge lines over the back and big triangles, and you were posting some videos. Was that fall? Was it this fall that you were posting some videos of sky camping out there? And man, you look lit up. You look like a pilot that had been flying for a couple years. You were having so much fun. You were obviously having a good time. So I'd love to hear some stories from beer and what you guys are doing out there these days. Because like I said, I was a newbie out there. I think I did my first 100K ever
yeah,
in beer, and I haven't been back. So that's all just kind of dreamy for me. I got to get out there and tap into it.
yeah. Um, Basically, flying. I've been flying in beer since 1995, I think. So many, many years, and we always knew that the potential was big. I mean, we didn't go over the back for quite a few years because we were so scared of, just looking at it. And I was sure that you could do 200K there. And I think in 2009, I did the first 200. I did 210 or something. And that was kind of an eye opener. And we were like, aha, okay, we can keep pushing this. And that motivated me for a lot of years to go in spring for a few days and try and push, make it bigger and bigger. And then obviously the years that, when you were there, 2006, 7, when we started exploring into the back, thanks to people like John and people like Honza, who was there, he just threw himself straight into the back. We're like, aha, okay, this can be done. And he was like, oh, it's great back there, you should go. We're like, okay. um, so yeah, and then pushing each year and trying to get the record bigger. I mean, for me, I've been flying almost 29 years now, and I need to find things that motivate me to keep flying and keep at it because, and also doing it as a job professionally, it's hard to find the motivation sometimes. And
Mm.
so for quite a few years trying to do the big flights in beer, that was big motivation. And then obviously, I mean, it was funny with the bivy flying. When John, in the beginning, I wasn't really into it. I'm not quite sure why. But the last few years, it's been, yeah, like this autumn, we had such a good time finding new spots and new lines in there. And then obviously, with the record, we had, I don't know if you've met Kubo and
Yeah.
Kubo, you know Kubo. So
Yep.
it was a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
ding dong between me and Kubo, and I've forgotten his friend's name. And each year, we'd break it by 1K, and then he'd break it by half a K, and I'd get another K. But all of that's over this year. I don't know. You must have seen Philip's flight. He just blew
Yes.
us all out of
Yes.
the water
Crazy.
by doing a line that I would have even thought of that line. I'm like, you dude, you can keep the record. I'm not going there.
Yeah, let's paint the picture for the listeners who haven't been there, because it's worth describing a bit. I mean, I remember my still one of my most fondest memories was maybe the first flight I ever took there, where we didn't go over the back, but I was following John, and he just kept going to places where, I had been, a newbie mountain pilot, but in other parts of the world. And you just don't go to those places in other parts of the world. It was, there was no wind. You just kept going. I mean, the first place that I had ever flown where you just fly where it makes sense with the sun, and you
Yeah,
just kind of forget everything else. You
yeah,
just, okay, that face is getting sun. We will go to that face. And regardless of how buried and deep and, and convoluted, it was just, oh, so fun. It was amazing to just dive into places where you'd usually be pretty puckered. In
yeah.
the beginning, you are puckered, and then you get used to the place. You're like, yeah, that's totally reasonable. That completely works. But you've got the front range, which is what is about 4,000 meters, and then the next one back is five, and then the big ones, right? Then you get into the sixes. Is that about right,
Yeah,
more or
yeah,
less?
yeah. That's kind
Okay.
of right. I mean, that's the beauty of beer for me. It's definitely on one of the top places to fly because the menu is so big. You can play safe out front on the front ridge. You can go into the back just a little bit, or you can go, like you say, really deep into the 6,000s. And basically, the front ridge, which tops out at about 442, and you've got about, I would say, 40K and 70K. It's about 120K of ridge, which, like you said, there's no real wind because it's the first big hills, big mountains before the flats. So there's no real valley wind. And I think the mountains behind are so big that you don't have, even when there's a strong north wind up high, it doesn't affect that. And which makes it a great playground because you can, yeah, like you said, you can fly all over the place. There's no real lee side and it works super well and it's predictable. I mean, it's super easy to fly cross country there, as you know. Yeah.
Mm. So the flight that Philip did, describe that a little bit. Well, I'll put that up in the show notes. I know what you're talking about. But what did he do?
So basically, before all the big flights that we've been doing, like the record 256 or 57, I think I did. I think 2018 that was the record till Philip blew it out the water this year. And basically, we'd be running on the front range past Dharamsala, so going west. But before we used to go about 90K west, but there's an army base, and Kubo started getting in trouble. So we there's a limit of airspace, which is about 83K, and then we turn around and race back, and then go to Prussia Lake, which is on the east side, and try and push a point as far there and get back to Beer. So kind of, the second half is a little bit in the back, but it's mainly a big ridge run. But Philip,
How far down is that? Getting pretty close to the Nepal border,
no,
or is that
no,
still a
no, no,
long
no.
ways out?
That's
Okay.
like
Okay.
when
Okay.
we go east from Beer, it's only about 45K east, Prussia Lake or something. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But what Philip did was he went, instead of going just west, he went northwest. So he jumped in the back and then jumped into the valley behind the main Doladar range, and flew the whole Chamba Valley. And actually, he when I spoke to him later that day, and his plan wasn't even to do a record. he was just going for a bivvy, and he flew up there, and it was a super good day. And he thought, oh, I can turn around and fly back to Beer. So, and when he came close back to Beer, he said, "Oh, I can just fly another 15K that way, and I've got a new record." So that's what he did. So, and
Well,
obviously he sent me his track as soon as he landed, the bastard. And
yeah. Just
uh,
rubbing it in.
I was like, well, what can you say? It was an amazing line that he did. I hadn't even thought of that line. It was very engaged.
It is quite cool, isn't it, when strangers come to your home place and kind of show you, I've had this dream of, Kriegel coming here and just showing us what's possible,
Yeah.
because you get in your this is how you do it, and somebody can come along and go, no, there's a whole bunch of ways to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh, very cool.
that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That you think one thing, but then someone's like, actually, there's a lot more.
Yeah, right, right. So is your push there now, the kind of keeping the passion lit is more the bivy stuff, or is it still you gonna chase Philip?
No, I think Philip can keep that one. I'm not going where he went. I got two kids, man. I saw some of the
So
I saw some of the footage of that day, and he's like, "Oh, this is just a little Cole. He's at 5'5", and he's on full bar, and he just squeaks through." I'm like, dude,
ooh.
yeah,
So just big terrain.
yeah,
That's another thing that we should probably describe. On the 4,000 meter, you're totally in civilization the whole way. That civilization's just right in front.
yeah,
That's why they have comps there and everything else. That rapidly deteriorates, as I remember, as you go back.
yeah,
You
exactly.
start to get into there's not a lot back there in terms of villages and people and
I
stuff,
mean,
right?
when you do the first jump back from Beer, you've got a while where there's villages and you can land, and then there comes a point where you decide to go in further. Like, even if you just fly to Manali, which is not very far, but it's still quite a committing flight. You're in some big terrain where you don't really want to go down. If you do,
Mm.
hopefully you're fine and you've got a long walk out. Uh, there's obviously been quite a few stories over the years in beer of people landing in the back and walking for a couple of days to get out and stuff like that. But yeah, it gets pretty wild once the deeper you go, the more committing it gets, obviously, for sure.
Mm. What's a line that you've flown, or a bivvy that you've done that you dream about at night still, is something that you're really proud of, or you still think, gosh, I'd love to do that again, or something similar?
I did quite a nice line this year. We all went for a bivvy together. Actually, there was 14 of us bivvying together. It was quite fun. It was a party.
Whoa. Wow, that's a sky party.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. And we bivvied at this new spot I found on the back ridge, which is a great spot, really nice. And the next day, everyone was flying back to Beer, and I kind of thought, maybe I'll fly to Manali. I wanted to go and see my mum, and I knew the weather was bad for a few days. And I took quite a deep line inside, and there's a peak, the head of the Manali Valley, which is about 6,000 meters. And my goal was to try and fly above it. I didn't quite get it. I got to 5'8", so I almost got over the peak, but
Oh.
that was quite a spectacular flight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was pretty nice.
Ooh, that's up there.
Yeah.
Are you flying with O's when you're doing that type of stuff, or no? Is that too hard to get?
No, it's a bit complicated in India to get. And I mean,
Hmm.
I've been up to 6 a few times. And I've never had too much of an issue with that. So I say that you do, been very happy sometimes, too happy. When I look back at,
Yeah.
at some of the footage, I'm like, you're not quite right there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how it affects people in different ways.
Yeah,
I tend to get really goofy and silly and laughing, and
exactly.
if I get on the radio, I people say I can't understand the thing you're saying, but in my mind I sound fine. It's a weird
Yeah,
hypoxia is strange.
it's a funny one. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you guys deal with that quite a bit. Or
Uh,
do you not so much? Maybe you get kind of adjusted to the altitude
yeah,
because
I
you're living
mean,
so high and
personally,
everything.
I've never really had a problem with it. And I mean, when we're guiding clients and stuff, we avoid taking them super high or going super deep. I mean, I did one flight with a couple of clients this year, which was uh, fairly deep inside, and it was quite stressful at points. It was very rewarding for all of us at the end, but at points, I think they said you had quite a squeaky voice at points. I'm like,
You should just do what John did. No one could understand him. It was just, I just learned after a while that you just had to follow him because he was so happy and excited,
yeah.
no matter what he was doing, that he didn't make any sense. It was just, he's just
Yeah,
buzzing.
John was definitely squeaky all the time. So yeah, when he was buzzing, he's like, I remember couldn't get much of what he was saying.
I have to ask you, Debbie, what's your approach to how do you guys tackle bivy in that area? Because I remember John telling me when he did not the group big flight all the way to Nepal with Antoine and everybody, the film, but didn't he did a huge solo thing, right? Where he talked about, basically he just packed an extra pair of underwear. That was it. You relied on the communities for milk and food. You just said everywhere I'd land, they'd come to me and,
Yeah,
they'd ask me to share their little house and they'd take care of them. And I mean, he didn't have anything. I'm sure he had some tea because
yeah.
no Brit goes anywhere without, no self-respecting Brit goes anywhere without tea. But is that how you guys kind of approach it now too? Or do you go pretty light?
No, we got the bivvies we were doing. We were pretty kitted out. Yeah, we were
Okay.
pretty kitted out
Yeah.
to, especially as well. I mean, the bivvies I was doing this year was mainly more in the back, kind of deep in and high up. So obviously no villages and no fresh milk coming up there.
Mm.
So yeah, we were pretty equipped with food and stoves and all the usual gear.
And what's the status with InReach there now? Because there's always been, I get a call every
Mm,
once in a while. Somebody's disappeared in beer, and they're trying to figure things out. And I'm quite handy with the InReach and know the folks at Garmin quite well, so
yeah.
I try to help if I can. But there's always been this weird thing with India and InReach. I'm not
Yeah,
supposed to use them.
I mean, everyone's using them in beer, which is great. I mean, they've saved more than a few lives, as you know. But
Yeah.
it's still kind of illegal to have any satellite device. I think I recently heard they were doing something to legalize it, but obviously the word hasn't gotten round, and people have got in trouble when they have their InReach in their hand baggage, for example, going out.
Mm.
So they're still kind of illegal, but we still recommend all our clients to bring one.
Yeah.
Just pack it deep in your bag and hope for the
Right.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So 20, I think you mentioned you've been flying 29 years, and things changed a little bit when you had kids and then changed again when you had COVID, but you just got back from Colombia, so you're obviously still doing quite a bit of guiding. Have you had any periods in that almost 30 years of flying where it hasn't really had the zing for you, or you've thought about doing something else, or how have you been able to maintain the kind of passion over all these years for it?
yeah, that's a good question. I think for the last quite a few years, I've managed to keep the zing, as you say. There was a point, like I was saying before. Before I started doing comps, I kind of got to a plateau where, I thought, in beer we were flying to Dharamsala and back and here and there, and we were like, yeah, we got this, we're cool. And then, like I said, a whole bunch of comp pilots turned up, and we're like, aha, we're actually really
Not
slow.
maybe not so good,
Yeah.
right?
So I mean, the comps kept me going for quite a long time with the motivation and just when you do comps and you see some of these pilots, you're like, there's still so much to learn. And lately, I mean, I did quite a few years of acro as well. Uh, so in
Mm.
the beginning, till about 2007, I used to compete, so that was quite motivating as well. And then, yeah, trying to break the record and make a big flight. A new glider or a new harness always helps.
Yes.
That keeps you going for a while here and there. And yeah, right now it's probably bivy flying and trying to do different lines, big lines. And also what I like doing in India or in the Himalayas is kind of trying to get above a peak, like not even trying to, not even bothered about the Ks or the distance or whatever, but just trying to, soar up a 6,000 meter peak or something, which is so yeah, things like that. I always try and keep, find something to keep the motivation up. Not always easy.
Do you fly? Yeah, you're in the Grenoble area in France. Amazing area to fly. Is Do you fly quite a bit at home as well?
When I can, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mm,
I work quite a lot as well when I'm here. So it's quite frustrating working in a paragliding school at times when you're on the school slope and
yes,
it's an amazing day and all your friends are doing 200K and but yeah, I still get to
right.
fly quite a lot whenever I can, you know. What have I got? I've got a Zeno 2 that keeps me quite motivated these days. That's a lot of fun to fly.
Mm,
And also, what's great here is what in India. When I was living in India, a lot of the big flights I was doing on my own, and a lot of the big lines in Manali when I was living there. Whereas here, there's a whole bunch of friends who are really good and really keen. So the group effect is great as well. So I've got a lot of friends that I go flying with here, and whenever it's the big day, everyone's super excited and everyone's messaging each other. Okay, tomorrow's a big day. We're gonna go here. We're gonna so yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
how would you say, if you could carve up your year, the flying portion in percent, how much is guiding, how much is teaching, how much is just personal? And are you guiding and you're still guiding in beer like with Eddie and those guys, or that's more just for
Well,
fun when you're out to beer?
I think I did the 2019 season, and then I missed 2021, obviously, like most people.
Hmm.
And then last year I was guiding in beer. I was guiding a Vol Biv trip actually, which was a lot of
Ah,
fun. I just had two clients and
cool.
we had a great time. We discovered new spots and yeah, did some big lines with them. Um, I do a lot of tandems as well in France. You know,
Okay.
I think I
Okay.
did about
Yeah.
450 tandems last year, so that takes up a bit of time.
Whoa. Yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
and then in between, whenever I can, I quite a lot of hike and fly at home, which is great as well. And it's where there's not amazing for flying, at least you get to go hiking and fly down. So
Are you competing at all in hike and fly?
no, no, I thought about it for a while,
Is
and
that
then I'm like, yeah, sounds like
because
yeah,
there's so many in Europe now. They're just I mean, every little site's got a new hike and fly race.
yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah. It's
we're
great. It's a
that's a
lot.
very burgeoning thing over here, but they're
It's very
everywhere.
popular in Europe. I mean, I thought about it for a while,
Yeah.
and I haven't. Maybe one day, you never know, but I haven't got round to it yet.
Um, for those listening who are thinking about maybe coming to beer and doing some bivy, what are some guidelines? What do they need to know? What should they show up with? Anything different than how they would do it in the Alps?
No, not really, but just just obviously have an inReach, or if you are going to go out, maybe obviously let people know what your plan is or where you're going, and have in mind that yeah, you're not in the Alps. I mean, we've managed to get helicopters out in beer for incidents in the recent years, but it's usually the next day. It's not 10 minutes like in the French Alps. So yeah, I suppose just really looking at the risk versus reward over there and taking that more into account, and yeah, maybe playing it a little bit extra safe. And yeah, I think just yeah, letting people know or doing it as a group or with friends, I think that's important.
How does it work with water there? Are you carrying all your water? Are you able to top land places and there's enough snow and
S-
snow melt? I guess in the spring there'd be plenty of snow, but is there in the fall?
Yeah, there's not. I mean, this year I think I found three or four new spots, and I found it quite amusing to actually pick a spot and then fly around for a while and check it out, and say, okay, I
Yeah.
can see the water there, I can see firewood there, da 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 da. Okay, this looks like a good spot. It looks landable. Let's try that. I mean, I usually try and fly with at least 2 or 3 liters of water on me in case you can spend a night with that. Obviously, finding a spot with water makes it much more comfortable. So
Mm.
yeah, I was having quite a lot of fun looking at little streams and this and that, and figuring out. A few of the times I got, I was like, oh, that looks easy, and then when you're down there and you're walking to it, you're like, oh, actually, this is like an hour and a half away. But
Yep.
yeah, I guess that's all part of the fun, huh?
Yeah, it is part of the fun of kind of figuring that out. And I often I like flying around a lot because it usually looks so much better on first pass than it ends up being, and you realize, oh, I can't fly out of this place.
Yeah,
You've
that's
landed, and
that's
oh, those trees
obviously
are a lot higher than I. Yeah.
obviously that's one other point. You want to be able to take off again. I mean, we did end up this year
Yeah.
landing, and like you say, afterwards we're like, okay, I think we're gonna have to walk over there. Well, it's a lot closer when you're in the air, but we ended up walking a couple of
Sure.
hours to find a launch and stuff like that.
How do you? I would imagine guiding people on full bib's got to be a little stressful, especially in big terrain like that. How do you? How do you what am I trying to say? How do you make sure? How do you screen people before doing something like that? Are these always clients that you've flown with before, or
I mean,
you just kind of look at their resume and
I've done two of these before, in beer, and the first, obviously, I mean, we spent the first day top landing all over the place, and just watching them
Hmm.
and getting a feel for their skills for that, because that's a big part of it. Top landing, checking all the equipment, and then we'd go out for one night, to a easy spot, like I think Hobbiton in Beer. I don't know if you camp there.
Hmm.
Nice easy ridge.
Yeah,
So do an
yep.
easy night out, see how it all goes, then we fly back to Beer, spend a night at the hotel, and then we go out for 2 nights, and just build it up slowly, slowly. Uh,
Hmm.
and obviously a little bit stressful getting people to top land, and taking off again. But yeah, we kind of screened the guys, and two of the guys who I had before came back this year, so I knew them. So, it was once you know the clients and you know what their skills are, then it gets easier and you can push it a little bit more. But obviously, yeah, keeping the risk versus reward thing reasonable. That sometimes they're like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. I'm like, actually, no, we're going to keep it safe. You can come back and do this on your own if you want, but
Right,
yeah,
right. Keep it between the lines.
exactly.
That's what Santa always says. Uh, you must have a good story or two from over the years of something crazy that went down. Anything you
Ooh.
remember from just that
Um,
was a wild one. Either that pulled you pulled it off, or maybe that didn't go so well. But either way,
a story about me or about someone else?
yeah, either one,
I've
either
got a,
one.
I've got a good one from last year, actually. I'm not going to mention names. Let's keep it.
Ooh, this is exciting. All right, here we go.
So I was in Manali in spring, and a good friend of mine was in Beer, and we were supposed to meet. And I was like, "Oh, why don't you fly to Manali? You can come and see me." So he says, "Yeah, sure, that'd be fun." And so I was following him on the InReach, and I can see, and I was out hiking that day or something, and I was, occasionally checking, and I'm like, "Oh, looks like he's going for it today." I'm like, "Doesn't look like the best day. The clouds are quite big. It's And then at one point, I see his track go off course completely. I'm like, "That's no good. That's no good." And then I see him, he's still at 4 grand, but the mountains around are at 5.5. I'm like, he's fucked. And I
Ugh.
see the track go deeper and deeper, and then I see the track stop. And so, yeah, I'm shitting myself. And I'm like,
Ugh.
oh. And half an hour later, I get a message on the InReach, because he had me on his InReach. He's like, I'm fine, landed on a glacier, uh, but I'm okay, but I don't know where I am. So I'm like, okay, I know where you are. There's a village 7K down from where you are, the only village in the whole place. You might be able to walk there. Are you okay? And then I get a message back. He's saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, I landed on a glacier and then I fell in the river. All my glider's in the river, but I'm fine."
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, can you walk out of there? And he says, okay, I'll try. And then 10 minutes later, I get a message. He says, I tried to walk out. It's very slippery. I fell back in the river. I'm all wet again. I'm outside. I'm like, don't move, dude.
Oh
I'm like,
man.
don't move. This is wild terrain back there. We can see what we can do. And so I spent the whole afternoon trying to organize a chopper, which we got the chopper together. But it only picked him up the next morning at 10 o'clock. So he spent the night wet at 3/8
Ooh.
in the bottom of a glacial
Oof.
valley and with lots of bears and shit
Ooh.
around. So yeah, it was full on. And basically, what had happened um, was that he tried to get over a col, but the base was low. So he thought, I'll go in the cloud. So he went in the cloud, got disorientated, ended up in this tight glacial valley and was trying to fly out of the valley. And obviously, then he thought, okay, I'm going to land. There was places to land before, but he tried pushing it. And obviously, when he got near there was kind of snow bridges over the river and bits of river open. And I think he got near the place where he wanted to land, but the wind was coming down the valley with the cold, with all it was a katabatic. So he landed
Yeah.
on the edge of this snow bridge and got pulled into the river, drift
Oh God.
Yeah, and the river took him like 100
Oh.
meters down, where
Holy smokes.
where the river went back under the glacier. It was like a black hole, and he managed to get on the last rock just before going back. It was just a horror story.
Oh my God. That's just the worst case scenario. It's amazing he got out of that.
Yeah, very lucky man. He's a great guy. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this. I'm
Hey,
sure
there's
he'll be
no
fine. There's
names.
no
Who's
names.
gonna know?
He knows. Lots of people know. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's yeah, but it was a very good lesson for yeah, don't go in the clouds at 5 grand and try and get over calls. But
Ooh.
yeah, super super lucky. So he left his wing and his harness in the river, obviously, and the helicopter got him out. And it was all fine. And a week later, Philip Philip decided to go and pick up the harness because it was a nice harness. He said, "Oh, can I keep it if I go and get it?" So, so,
That sounds like Philip.
so he flew bivy, landed at 445, walked down with ropes, went into the river, picked up the harness, climbed back up again, spent the night, and flew out with the harness.
No way. What? Are you serious? That's unbelievable. Oh my gosh, I love that
Yeah,
dude. Hey, but the wing's still there?
the wing's still there. Yeah, it was.
Oh, anybody listening? You want to go get a wing?
Philip was like, oh, it was in the river. It was fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Toast.
But
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Wow.
and then Philip, as he's walking up, he showed me a video. He sent me a video. He's like, "Oh, I saw a bear. It was really cute." And he showed me the video. It's a big, huge brown bear, like 20 meters away from him. And he's like, "Oh, look at its cute ears." I'm like, "Dude, you're insane." Yeah,
when we were doing a bivvy with Antoine in the Sierras all those years ago,
yeah,
Oriol Fernandez was with us and bombed out one day. We all had our days, as you do.
yeah.
And he bombed out one day and came across a couple of pretty good sized bears, and it freaked him out so bad that was the end of his trip.
I
he
can
he didn't
understand.
think they were very cute.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
didn't. He's like, we don't get these in Spain.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. Okay, well that was a good one. How about, do you got any more? That's what I want to do. I want to hear stories from beer
That's a pretty
or
good
other
one.
places. That's a good one.
I can't come up with one off the top of my head. That was
I'm visualizing getting pulled off a snowdrift, going in the river and going into getting
it was
flushed underground. That'd be terrifying.
yeah, that was pretty scary. I mean, yeah, over the years, I mean, beer has, I mean, a lot of them are horror stories, which I don't really want to
Right.
get into
There
that.
are a lot of horror stories.
But yeah, it's gotten really popular beer. I mean, like, in October there's 5, 6, 700 pilots coming through. So
Wow.
yeah, not quite like what it was in 2009. Super busy. Right.
Yeah.
So
Even then, I mean, I have distinct memories of just the launch. I thought was terrifying.
yeah,
You know, you had these, you know, pilots that, you know, I we don't want to name a country, but we could name a country where they would show up flying, you know, open class gliders, prototypes and stuff, and they had 10 hours, you know, was the rumor. I don't know if that was true, but you know, they barely knew how to launch and flying comp gliders and, you know, one instructor for 40 pilots and stuff like this. I mean, I don't know if, again, I don't know if any of this was true, but it certainly looked true on launch where you're just going, oh my God, I got to get out of here so I don't see any more of this stuff. It was terrifying.
yeah, it was kind of like that again this year. It's a little bit better. The quality of pilots gone up a bit. But yeah, it's super
Mm,
busy because I guess it's one of the best places to fly in October in the world. There's not many places like Colombia. I was
certainly.
pretty shocked in Colombia. That was pretty full on launch. It was
Yes. Yes.
so yeah. I mean, there's been over the years lots of interesting rescue stories in beer. Some good ones, some not so good ones, but yeah, I can't come up with one right off the top of my head. The one I just told, that was the best one so far, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it must be interesting to do this with clients and stuff too. I mean, I still remember flying around with you guys, and for some reason, I got put onto John, and just following him around in that terrain was really, you know, I would just have to encourage listeners, you know, if you haven't done, it's not really part of our culture in the States to get guided. You know,
Yeah,
we don't, it's really much more of a European thing. You know, when you go climbing, you get a guide. When you go skiing, you get a guide.
yeah,
And because I have friends who are guides, I really, I love that. I just love going with a guide that, you know, they know the terrain. It's just, they bring you to the best places.
yeah,
And that was the first time I had done it in flying. And again, I was pretty new, but just following you guys around and having the stoke and also just having that little bit of uh, care and concern. You just felt like you were in good hands, but quite an eclectic group. You and Antoine and John and Eddie and Jim.
yeah.
My goodness. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more eclectic group, I think, you know.
Uh,
I heard the evenings were more exciting than the days.
yeah, they were good times.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of
We
fun.
lost John recently. How has that affected the dynamics there? Obviously legend. Hard to
Yeah, but John always was and always will be one of the legends, not just there, kind of all over the world, really.
sure, yeah.
I mean, he'd stopped coming for quite at least three seasons before he passed away last year or the year before. So yeah, and it was a shame because I would have loved to have seen John once before he left us.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously everyone around there still talks about John and and some of the lines and some of the flights and his style of flying. Obviously, it's still legendary and
Seat of the pants.
yeah, and yeah, we definitely miss the squeaky voice.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. But Jim and Eddie, are they still spending quite a bit of time there?
Uh, I mean, since I haven't seen Jim since 2019. Eddie came out this year in October. I mean, they
Mm,
stopped doing the guiding thing. Jim stopped quite a few years ago. And
okay,
Eddie kind of was doing a little bit, but now he did some again with us this year, and I think he's back into it. So
cool.
yeah, I haven't seen Jim for a couple of years. I'm quite looking forward to seeing him again. He's cut off his dreads, by the way, so it's going to look like a.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
I
I'm
haven't
actually getting him on the show here soon,
Yeah,
so
I haven't seen
we'll
him without
we'll get
dreads,
his
so
perspective.
you'll see him.
That'll be weird. I don't know if I'll recognize him.
Yeah, but but yeah, I've been working a lot the last few years with Stefan. You know Stefan Bernard.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a great guy as
yeah.
well. We get along really well, and it's been fun guiding with him as
Wicked
well.
comp pilot.
Yeah, really
He's
good.
fast. Yeah, he's really good. He has a lot more discipline than I do,
Yeah,
man.
same.
I gotta learn that from him. Yeah, that's oh, so you're still got a cool crew going there then.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. We
great.
got a good good team. So it's still fun.
What after all these years, what are your kind of, do you think it's important to kind of keep having personal goals? Do you have personal goals with your flying and how you approach your year, or is it mostly just works to kind of sapping it up and go have some
Yeah,
fun when you can?
yeah, kind of. I think it's important to have some personal goals with your flying, like we talked about before, to keep motivated. And I mean, what
Mm,
the thing I really love about flying is that, you never stop learning. You're always
mm,
getting better. I mean, I still feel that each year I learn new shit and, I improve on certain things, or you find one aspect of your flying that you think, you can work on that and improve that, or the efficiency or the lines. So it's just, yeah, it's never ending game, isn't it? Which is what I love about
mm.
it. Yeah.
Do you find you get more conservative as the years go by? And if so, do you weight that to any particular thing? Is it the kids? Is it your wife? Is it age?
Uh, Sometimes yes,
Or do you not?
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Mm,
Sometimes you're like, oh, actually, I'm gonna just take it a little bit easy here, and sometimes you do shit, and you're like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have
what
done
was I
that.
doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
again,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
that's the beauty of it. That's where you get the kick. So yeah, I guess
Mm,
we're all
mm.
addicted to it, and we get our hits different ways.
uh, where will you be guiding this year?
This year I'm going back to beer in October. I've got a pretty busy summer actually, so I don't think I'll be doing any guiding. I think I'll be doing mainly some teaching and a bunch of tandems. I've got my whole family coming out from India, so yeah, pretty busy with that. And then back to beer in autumn, and I think I'll be going to Colombia again. I like that. That was a lot of fun.
Mm,
So yeah, not
yeah,
not not as much
Columbia's
guiding as before, but yeah, I try and mix and match it with the professional side of it because I've got friends who just do tandems all year round and they just burn out. They don't want to fly anymore, which is understandable.
sure.
So I try and mix and
Mm.
match it a little bit, which keeps me motivated to, do a bit of teaching, a bit of tandems, a bit of guiding, keeps it fun.
The time that most people go to beer is in the fall, this kind of last couple of weeks of October and usually the first week or so of November, and then the monsoon starts. But it seems to me, and I've never done it, but it seems to me like the real season is the spring. That seems to be when you guys are grabbing the big stuff.
Spring is the time I like flying in beer. It's when you get the
Mm,
big days. Obviously, it's a bit less reliable than October. I mean, mid-October through to mid-November, you can fly pretty much every day, and it's good. Whereas in spring, you might get a front come through, or it might storm quickly for a few days. So, you know, you but when you get the big
more
days,
downtime.
yeah, when you get the big days, the days are obviously longer. You can take off at 9 and fly to 6, which gives you 9 hours of flying. Whereas in October, it's maybe 10:30 to 4, so less. The thing that's better in October though is it's better for going in deep because in spring all the back mountains are covered in snow. So it's obviously working a lot, it's a lot slower and difficult to maybe get as high, and obviously more committing with all the snow around than in
Mm.
autumn. So there's plus and minus points for both seasons. But personally, I like April. End of April is yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty magic then. The How about some hints for warmth? When you're flying at that kind of altitude, and obviously it can be really cold. I remember how cold it is there when you get tall.
Yeah.
How are you keeping your hands warm? How are you keeping your body warm? What are you guys using?
Well, body, and have a good pod obviously for the bottom half, and yeah, big down jackets, for the body. I've been using one of those, like a big expedition jacket that does the job. And makes a nice pillow as well when you're bivvy. And for the
Mm,
hands,
yes.
it's yeah, lifelong mission, I guess, trying to find the right solution. But
No kidding. God.
last year I used those the Monchon things, the things that you put the over sleeves, which are
Over mitts, yeah.
over mitts, which are really kind of annoying because they flap around and do this and that. But I found they're actually the most efficient. They do actually work and keep your hands warm. So once you figure out a technique to make friends with them, then they
Mm.
do work. So I've been using that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that that's kind of the best of it. Kriegel put me on to, he just uses his small gloves, and then they have those, Bassis Rausch, however you say it, it's a
Yeah,
Swiss company. They have the over mitts that are really more, they're not the kind that you tie up,
yeah,
the down sleeves that you tie up. And so they're not as gangly on launch and everything, but then it's kind of hard to use your hands because
yeah,
when you take it out, you've still got the smaller gloves on. So you can't, it's pretty hard to go to your instruments or
yeah.
to use anything, but they're warm.
I mean, I've been taken off with the over mitts on your forearms. When you fly, and flying
Yeah.
with
And
normal
rolling them down.
with normal Bassis Rausch gloves, and then when you get cold,
Yep.
you bring them up and close them, and that was doing the job pretty well.
That works pretty well. Huh?
Yeah,
Cool. Debu, always terrific. It's good to see you, man.
yeah,
It's nice to see you here. It's been too long
yeah,
since the
yeah,
bus in Switzerland, so we'll have to catch up in real time here and do some flying together.
yeah.
And
That would be
congratulations on the big flights. That's been a hoot to watch, man. I've been building a house. I've been flying that much, so I get my kicks off watching guys like you go and have some.
great. Yeah, yeah. Maybe see you in May. You coming for the Worlds in France?
You know what? I completely hammered my spot, man. I had a spot on the team, and in Monarca, I got a little too hungry in the end. I was leading through
Ah,
day
you were
four
you
and
were
having a
winning. I
really
remember.
good comp.
I was watching.
Yeah, and then I blew it. I had two
I
days in a row where I got a little too hungry and thought, "Ooh, I'm really gonna stomp it," and I missed the world's team by a couple points.
ah,
So I was yeah. So not that's not the plan right now, but I'm gonna go to the Brazil World Cup and the Spain World Cup right
okay.
now, and
Yeah,
there's still a chance for world if we get another slot or somebody doesn't go,
yeah.
maybe. But
Okay.
love to see you.
But yeah, anytime you're in France, hit me up. You come and stay. We've got a nice place, plenty of space. You're welcome.
Love to.
Yeah.
Love to. Hi to the crew. Hi to Flo and the kids.
Nice
And
one.
thanks, bud.
Yeah.
Nice chatting with you.
Been a pleasure. Cheers, Kevin.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.